Welcome, my friends, after this beautiful Independence Day weekend. You're with Mike Wallace and Gary Keller for the Wallace and Keller Show. Whereas we always say, we talk a little racing and we talk a lot of stuff. Gary's full of stuff. So, man, Gary, what a weekend. We've had a little bit of everything. Independence Day, great celebrations at the White House and at, Mount Rushmore all around the country. And we had some really good racing going on, too.
Yeah, I thought so. Tell me what you thought of the Trumpster this past weekend. The
Well,
celebration.
as you and I both kind of float down the same path, I thought he did a really, really nice job in regards to helping and having his whole team execute the Independence Day celebration. And regardless of what time of the day it was, things got backed up because of weather. He didn't leave the weather bother him. He says, "We're going to do it one way or another, no matter what time, and we're going to do it, try to do it on the 4th." So, I mean, you think about this, Gary. Friday night, July 3rd, it was midnight by the time I was watching. He's out at Mount Rushmore in South Dakota. He gets back on an airplane, hightails it back across to Washington, D.C. All the things they have going on there. I mean, how much more can you ask for, really, for a president to do besides run our country, doing a great job? In our area, fuel prices are going dramatically down, dramatically down.
Same
And,
here.
hopefully that will keep everybody all intrigued. And other than that, I think he's doing a hell of a job.
I do too. It's amazing though. The left, you just can't keep them happy. I mean, there's read an article this morning from the New York Times, and they were so critical of the president, and I just thought it was so unjustly unfair. I mean, he didn't. This was one time that he did not make it all about him. It was about the country, the celebration. I thought the people that he brought in to celebrate World War II veterans, the Korean War, the Vietnam War. I mean, it was amazing. Everybody, it seemed like, was represented, and it was nice. I think it was a great balance. I didn't see where it was all about him. I didn't see that at all. So I guess I'm just missing something.
No, I don't think you're missing anything, Gary. You've seen it exactly right. I paid a lot of attention to it because of our conversations and just so forth. It was totally not about the president. It was about the United States of America. It was about our independence. It was about the people that put their foot forward to, celebrate and create independence. I learned a lot. That was a very educational last couple days. I mean, it wasn't like just some big celebration. There was a lot of in-depth conversations going on the networks that would allow it to happen. And I thought it was really good. I really did. I don't think you could be biased in any position whatsoever. I think there was great air shows involved. There was great conversation involved. There was great people involved, and there wasn't many we's and I's and all that in the conversation. It was, and I should rephrase that, there wasn't many I's in the conversation. There was a lot of we's and the country as a whole. And I was moved. I think a lot of people were, everybody I talked to, my friends that were watching it. And I mean, July 4th. I mean, it was up past midnight, and we're setting a record for the most fireworks ever to be shot off anywhere in the United States. And it was inspiring. I thought it was.
You know what's amazing to me? I heard on Newsmax today that socialism and communism from the ages of like 22 to 38, the masses of percentages are so high. Trump talked a lot about communism. Totally surprised me. But it's amazing. The younger generation, the millennials, I guess is what we want to call them, is, and I don't mean to categorize anybody or be biased, but it seems like they let this stuff go on in New York, the socialistic patterns. It just makes no sense to me.
Well, I think we can pull one person that you know by name, and he's a good friend of mine. Is Felix Sabates. Felix lives here in the Charlotte, North Carolina area. And the last time there was any big socialistic, communistic conversation going on, Felix took a full page ad out in the Charlotte Observer. He come from Cuba. He's part of that Peter Pan Project program, and he'll tell you why you don't want a socialistic, communistic state. And it's one of the craziest things in the world. And it's people that don't know any better. What we don't have, Gary, is enough people voting. We have a very small, minute part. I think if I heard this right, and if I don't quote it right, don't throw me under the bridge and back over me. But like only 18% of the people voted in New York City,
Yes.
or some very small number that doesn't mean much of anything. And you're going to get just the hardcores that want it to be their way. But you and I have grown up in a free democracy. We've done what we wanted to do. You've been in a position that you can make out what you wanted to make a living. I could make a living doing what I do, drive race cars, have fun, and we're all smart enough. I went to grade school. I went to high school. I never did go to college, but I learned enough about socialism and communism going there, and I don't want anything to do with it. I don't think my kids want anything to do with it. I know they don't because they're hard workers and they don't mind working for what they get. And
Yeah.
hopefully, they'll hopefully we'll get it shut up. I really do. I mean, it's going to take a run. It's going to challenge a lot of people here. But man, think about if we had all that stuff, we couldn't drive our race cars like we're used to doing.
No, I mean, I think it'll burn itself out, to be honest with you. I mean, once they realize that the socialistic ways are not going to happen, and socialism leads into communism, as you well know. So anyway, enough of that. It just bethrows me that we're talking about this in this day and age, 2026. And thank goodness for the Republican Party. And I know I'll say it again and I'll apologize. No, I won't apologize. I take that back. I'm not
I don't
apologizing.
apologize for nothing, Gary. You just come on full tilt. That's what people like about you.
No, I'm not going to apologize. We're just Republicans, and we believe what we believe in. We believe in the right way and democracy and the great country that we live in, and that's that. So, anyway, let's get to racing.
Man,
Chicago,
man,
Joliet.
all sorts of racing be going on. Okay, so let's get to the main, most important thing. The last time we talked about the Tropicana balloon blowing down pit road and on the front straightaway. And darn it, crazy enough, pops up on my Facebook feed just a couple days after we talked about it. And it's been the talk of the town for over a week. The
You're
whole
kidding.
Tropicana Orange, shows a big thunderstorm. They had a crazy thunderstorm there a couple days ago. But you brought it up the last time we were there, a big thunderstorm, and that big inflatable goes down the whole front straightaway. I watched it again the other day, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that baby didn't even get in the grass. It just followed the apron and just rolled on down there."
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and who was it? Larry McGrail said, "I don't think that thing's going to make it through tech."
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that was once in a lifetime deal. I wonder if it was because we mentioned it on our show.
Well, we have a lot of power, Gary. There's a lot of people that listen, and there's a lot of quasi, mysterious things happen that they hear about us. And somebody with the powers to be said, "You know what? Let's just roll that baby out that everybody can see it. That way, they all know what they're talking about." And I think it's run out perfect. But what about Chicagoland? It was cool. Sold out crowd on yesterday on Sunday, which actually shocked me. Why I don't know. That's a big, big market up there. You got all the Midwest right there, Chicago. So they sold that baby out. They had good races the day before, but I was impressed with the race yesterday. It wasn't, bumper to bumper, but it was a lot of strategies involved, and it come down to the end. Christopher Bell chasing Briscoe down, I thought was good, and sure showed the strength of all those Toyotas yesterday, didn't it?
Gosh, Mike, I mean, it just doesn't stop. I mean, this is a year for Toyota beyond a shadow of a doubt. I
Yeah,
mean, it's every weekend.
yeah. We got even. We kind of missed last week, but we got to. I want to back it up just a little bit on that Toyota camp. But they've been good for the road courses and everything. But we got to give a shout out to SVG from a couple weeks ago. For that Sears Point run where he was in Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s car, and then he gets in Trackhouse's Cup car, and he wins both races. And I don't know if you watched that race, Gary, but they had an in-car camera, and they were showing his foot and hand action. And like
It's
I've
amazing.
seen a lot of shifter action in my life, right? I got that, but they were showing how he was adjusting brake bias between corners. He has a lever brake bias in there, and he used it like a shifter. I mean, I was amazed. He's making that car turn. using technique that I guarantee no one else in the field is using.
I bet they'll sure try it now.
They rolled it out there on live TV, and I remember him saying the following week, he goes, "Well, I like that live TV, but it shows a few things that I don't want it to show."
Well, I'll tell you what, he's sure spectacular at what he does. So, yeah, very
He certainly has a talent, and for anybody, we call him SVG, Shane Van Ginsberg, and he's used to run the V8 supercar series over in Australia. He's a New Zealander, got just incredible, incredible car control and technique when it comes to road course racing. I mean, had he not got wrecked at San Diego, he would have probably won that race also. But what is it? He's won 7 of 8 or something like that. I think that's the number, 7 of 8 road races in the Cup Series, which ranks him 3rd. I think it was tied 3rd overall for the whole life of NASCAR, and he's only run it 3 years, and he's tied for 3rd in most road course wins.
yeah. Who was the other Australian? Ambrose?
Marcus Ambrose.
Marcus
Yeah,
Ambrose?
Marcus lived right across the street from where I live at right now, so
Seriously,
yeah,
he's still in town. For some reason, I thought he went back to Australia.
he did. I'm sorry, he did live across there. He moved back to Australia, and what's really unique is his wife and his daughter are racing now.
Really?
He's running a series, meaning he's like the promoter of one of the V8 supercar series. And I read an article from his wife the other day. She said, "Well, he had all that fun for years. Now it's time for me to have fun. I'm going to go see if I can do what I've been watching him do for years." So that is cool.
Yeah. That's a blast from the past. He was a very respectful driver. But
Sure.
this Shane Van Gisberger, man, I'll tell you, just amazing. And the thing of it is, Mike, he's competitive in everything he does. You
Yeah.
know, I
Well,
mean,
he
you know,
certainly, whatever he gets in, that's a road race style car or track. He shines there. As he says, I still have some things to learn on ovals. It'd be interesting to see what he thinks he's got to learn because when you can go left, right, straight, and you can shift and brake and run your brake adjuster all at the same time, you're pretty damn talented. So
yeah,
I'm not sure what you would pick up the other times.
yeah. Well, it was sure good to see him back in Chicagoland. And I think going back to when they took that race away, I think what year was it? 2017, 18, maybe, Mike?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's close to that
Yeah,
time.
close that time. At the same time, I think they took away Kentucky as well. So I think that NASCAR took away a track, and then I think Marcus
Yeah,
took.
SMI or what they used to call it SMI, which is Bruton Smith, Marcus Smith, and I guess they just call it the Smith family now. I'm not sure if it still goes under SMI because it's not nobody's publicly traded any longer. Everybody's privately owned, and that's when all the racetrack changing happened. Just that if anybody wants to know why it changed, is because they went from both SMI, which is Speedway Motorsports, and the France family, IMS, went private. And that's why a lot of races were canceled off the schedule. That's a lot of the properties around those racetracks. If you notice around Chicagoland, you see a bunch of warehouses built in what used to be parking lots. You see out at Fontana Speedway, which is California Speedway, they've sold off almost all the ground around that. And they can only build a half-mile racetrack if they ever do decide to build one because they built buildings around everything else.
Do you think it'll happen, Mike? Do you think they'll rebuild in Fontana?
Well, there are the rumor mill says all the permitting and all that stuff is too ridiculous to do it. I would have to think there was something in play when they decided to close it down. I mean, it's still NASCAR is a big deal to any community, and I would think they would be able to get it done. What I do know from inside sources is when they decided to go public or go from being public to being private, they needed to raise a lot of cash to buy out all those stocks and shareholders. So that's why some of these racetracks, Chicagoland, California Speedway, all the ground around those big racetracks got sold to create a cash cow to pay that debt down, which I understand through what do they say that through your friends they say it got paid down. So they did good. Now they're kind of regrouping. It looks like.
Yeah. California Speedway, Fontana. Home of Rick Mears.
Yeah, well, Rick Mears was a leader of the California gang, you know. I mean, you had Rick Mears, Roger Mears, Casey Mears, and Casey Mears is trying to still race a little bit. He's trying to, I think I read he's trying to get 4 more starts. That way he can say he's run 500 NASCAR races. And
Get in the truck series.
now he's trying to do it in a cup car. He drove the Beard car at Pocono, didn't run very well, but that was got him closer. And I think Bob Germain, who he drove for as of recent, is helping him try to achieve that goal. And that Beard family that owns that car that Richard Childress takes care of and preps it for the speedways. He's been trying to do it in that car there.
We talked a few minutes ago about a good friend of yours and mine, and I want you to tell us a little bit about him because I think you know him better than I do. Felix Sabates, one of a kind. You know, never be anybody like him. As you said, he was a Cuban immigrant, came over here legally, came over and made himself legal, and the sky was the limit with him. Tell us about Felix, Mike.
Well, Felix, I met many years ago, and I know him pretty well through his daughter, Mimi Sabates, who is Mimi is married to Doug Herbert. So, I see those two quite often, and on occasions get invited to events at Felix's house. Not a lot, but I've got to know him well enough to know, and I've had him on my podcast a couple years ago, and he did give me the whole story of how he got out of Cuba. And let's go back for a second, Gary, that everybody even knows who we're talking about.
Yeah.
Felix Sabates was a car owner, a NASCAR car owner, and he kind of burst onto the scenes in a flamboyant way. He had Kyle Petty driving for him, and Felix did a lot of things that had money involved. He had Rolls Royces at the racetrack and give Kyle a Rolls Royce as a bonus and did things in a high fashion way. Owned a Liberty Yacht Company for a period of time, so had these big old yachts. Always had nice airplanes. Was a real go to it, make it happen guy, and he made his money through distribution of different products. The Teddy Ruxpin doll was a big moneymaker for him. They imported that. The Compact computer, the COMPAQ. He was the U.S. representative for them. So he knew how to make things happen, and he become very successful. But when we got talking on occasions about communism, oh my God, you want to talk about a guy that knows everything about it and tells you how you don't want anything to do with it. It's proven that it will never work, and it has never worked anywhere. But what a sweet guy. He is. Felix is in his 80s now. He lives like he's 45, from Miami to Charlotte to the Bahamas, and, just lives the life. Him and Rick Hendrick are real good friends. And so he's a good guy to learn from. When you listen to him talk. And I always kid him because I can never speak with the accent he's got. He's got the broken accent.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
pretty cool guy. You talked about the fact that he was involved with yachts. Okay. I'm in St. Martin. I go to the casino, one of the huge casinos there. Not huge, but one of the casinos that's owned by the Russians. And most of the blackjack tables were $5, 5, 10, 25, and there was only one table at $100. Well, I'm a $100 blackjack table or blackjack person. So I walk over and there's this gentleman hadn't shaved for probably a good 2, 3 weeks. And it said private on the table, but I had the balls to go up and ask him, or I walked over and leaned over. I said, would you like to have some company? He said, certainly, have a seat. So I sat down, we started playing, and we both were maintaining very well. He was very, very frugal with his money. Didn't bet like $1,000 or $1,500 or anything like that, just $100. And I introduced myself. I'm Gary Keller, and he said, my name's Felix. I said, well, nice to meet you, Felix. How are you? He said, I'm good. I said, what brings you down here to St. Martin? You on vacation? He said, I'm on vacation every day.
yeah,
So then I said, well, what's your last name? He said, Felix Sabates. I about shit my pants, you know,
you're
and knew who he was because he had just recently at that point in time got involved in NASCAR. And, he used to have the pond out by his motorhome. Do you remember that? used to have a pond, usually with goldfish in it and all that,
Yeah,
during
Felix had a guy by the name of Rat who drove his motorhome, and he made it look like thought you were in the backyard of your house all the time when you walked outside of it.
well, so that was my Felix Sabata story, and then, I would always run into him at the track. He very like you said, a very nice person, yeah. And we met a lot of nice people along the journey, Mike, in NASCAR. I mean, we met a few difficult people too, but for the most part, I've met a lot of good people.
Well, I think you do, Gary. I think that, we all have. There's always that one or two people out of the whole world that you could care about less than the rest of them. But
Right.
I think all in all, the nice part about motorsports, the business side of motorsports, the competitive side of it, everything else is a lot of people doing exactly what they want to do.
Yeah.
And it also has opened a lot of doors for people, not just in the racing world. It's opened a lot of things in the business world. It's opened different sectors for people to take the people they've learned and network with them and open the doors for great business and entrepreneurialships. And
Yeah. Great point. Great point. I mean, we talked about Chicagoland coming back this year, and I'm still hoping that they come back to Kentucky Speedway. Such a great facility, Mike. Not just because I'm from Cincinnati and it's kind of was always my home track, but what a great facility. I thought it was a great venue, but like I said, NASCAR gave up one race, and then Marcus gave up one race, and those were the two tracks that they closed down.
yeah, that Kentucky racetrack has got me shocked still today because it was a very nice racetrack. We raced the trucks there before they ever run the Xfinity cars or the Cup cars there, and I come within 2 laps of winning a race there one night. And it's just a really cool racetrack. It's got incredible access right there in Sparta, Kentucky, right off the interstate. Everything I see of it anymore, it's a huge parking lot. Ford Motor Company use it to park pickup
Yep,
trucks and
that's correct.
and
Yeah.
all that in. So hopefully one day it will get all sorted out and become a racetrack again. And
I remember your daughter Chrissy. She had a terrible accident there from what I remember. Am I
yeah,
correct?
she was running. If I remember, if it's the wreck you're talking about, she was running second in the truck race, and her and Sprague got together down in 3 and 4. But she had speed. How do you say that? You wrecked your butt off, but you go, I had speed. And so Chrissy, I don't know if you've been paying attention to Chrissy this year. She's won 6 out of 7 races this year
It's
in
amazing.
in that
And that's
super
seventh
series
place.
she's
That's
running,
seventh
driving for
place.
Jeremy Mayfield. They come out with all the finish results the other day for a halfway break, and she's got a 1.8 win percentage.
And the race she lost was the one that you won, correct?
Yes, yes, yeah. That was at Hickory Motor Speedway. So we've had a good success in that series this year. And
Right.
I went to try to run my late model. I went down to Anderson, Indiana, or Anderson, South Carolina. I was going to run my pro late model and had an issue with, believe it or not, something got in. You think, here it goes, Gary. I've seen everything.
Yeah.
I've heard of it all. Except somehow a brand new motor gets a paper towel. They say it was never left in it. Somebody's put it in there. Everybody I talked to says it couldn't happen, but there's somehow one of these blue fiber towels got in the water pump. Rinse ran through the whole engine, got in the radiator, clogged the radiator up, clogged the secondary radiator up, and we chose not to run the car. But we were fifth quickest out of 31 cars. So we're going to go back and we got it fixed up. We found everything was wrong and got it ready to go again.
How in the hell could something like that happen? It was a crate motor, is that correct?
Well, crate motors aren't crate motors anymore. They take them apart and they do things to them. But as I talked to the radiator manufacturer, I talked to other engine builders, I've talked to other drivers in a week. And you know what? It's nothing new to all of them. They all have had or heard of somebody it's happened to. And
Never. Never in my time had I ever heard about
yeah,
that.
stupidest thing in the world. It literally junked 2 radiators, filled all the cores up that you couldn't get some air, sent them to the ultrasonic cleaner. He can't do anything with them. So you throw those away. You find the one only lucky radiator that's left on a shelf at the manufacturer up in Indianapolis. Otherwise, it's 12 weeks to get one. So
Yeah.
we got one. They took good care of us, and we're ready to roll now.
Good for you. One thing I wanted to touch on about NASCAR, and it's one thing that I'm glad that they did away with, and that's what they call win and end. And I'm so glad that they did away with that because, basically what it was, Mike, is as you well know, you could be running 30th, 30th, 28th, or whatever in points, and then all of a sudden you win a certain race, and then you would be getting in to the chase, correct?
That is correct. That's how it did work.
Yeah,
And
and I think the last person that did a good example of that was Harrison Burton, I think, a few years back.
well, Harrison got in that way. That's how Shane Van Ginsburg, you know, was eligible almost right away to get anyone his first race ever, and created eligibility for him. And
But he backed it up.
yes, yeah. Well, they all backed it up. I think what they finally done, and we make a joke, and you and I have always said on the show that the NASCAR world is the love hate relationship. We all want to be involved in it. We all love it. It's the coolest sport in the world. But damn, they can do some things to aggravate you along the way. And what they did do right is they got rid of that win in your end, and now you got to be a contender. You got to race for wins and finishes. I was happy to see. What I seen yesterday at Chicagoland. I was really happy with. Sounds really weird, but I was happy to see them fix Tyler Reddick's car after it had something go through the radiator. It knocked a hole in the radiator. They just didn't park it. They had that time rule before if
Twenty.
something happens. They fixed that thing and he went back out. And during that time, there was a bunch of yellow flag laps, so he didn't lose near as many as he could have. But it included the team. It let the team work on the car, got it back out on the racetrack for all of Tyler's fans, his sponsors, all the sponsor people that are there got to see the car race again, and he gained a few spots and points because he ended up finishing, and other cars dropped out at the end.
Mike, as you well know, that's the way it used to be.
Hey, do you remember when Dale Earnhardt's team, the Richard Childress team, changed engines at Dover in 17 minutes? They put a
Yes.
complete engine in his car in 17 minutes to get him back out on the racetrack when every point counted.
I'm sure they got a film somewhere of that. I'd love to see that. But
Yeah,
I
I'm
do
I'm sure that it's there, but I do remember it happening, and it was. I remember old Chocolate Myers always saying it got right down to the end of the year. Yeah, boys, we got everything but the chicken kitchen sink thrown in there. And I just went ahead and threw one in there for the good of all, just to have a kitchen sink. That way we could say we got everything with us.
right,
Because they
right.
used to bring a trailer, a separate enclosed trailer at the end of the year, last few races of the year with everything, every possible part, frame pulling equipment, what they used to call the Kansas jack that you would pull the frame apart if you ever been it. They were ready for the most radical wrecks in the world to stay in that points deal.
We're kind of running out of time here, Mike, but I did want to touch on something. I wanted to ask your opinion on this. Do you think Richard Childress is running out of gas? Do you think this with this deal with Kyle passing away? Do you think that's kind of like reminded me a lot back of the Dale Senior days? And do you think he's just kind of just had enough?
I don't know. I haven't talked to Richard directly. I was happy to see that Richard was in Washington D.C. for the state of North Carolina. He had a race car on display as part of the state fair, the big state fair program they had, and Richard himself was there. I think he's one of those guys, Gary, that he's a very diverse individual, does a lot of things, hunting, fishing. He's big into politics, big into conservatorianism. But I think he's a racer by heart, and I think if there will ever be a final day for Richard Childress, it's going to happen at the racetrack. I think what he's trying to do, and I'm just repeating from what I'm hearing, he's trying to set the company up and has got it set up that, Mike Dillon, his son-in-law, along with Ty and Austin Dillon, will take over, Richard Childress Racing in due time. And I think they're making some of the calls now. According to Ty Dillon, I'm sorry, according to Austin Dillon, he had a lot to do with Kyle Busch coming there. He initiated the original phone call, and I think how do they say that? They call Richard Papa. Hey, Papa, I think we need children, or we need Kyle Busch to come over here. And he
Hmm.
says, "You think he'll come?" And he says, "Let us work on it." So When somebody like Richard, who has been great for the sport forever and ever, and I don't know how many years, 50 years at least, you know, he's
But they
just a good soul and he's helped a lot of people and he's had a lot of success. And I know from guys that work there, they certainly aren't slowing down in regards to their competition side. They're really working hard to get better.
yeah. Mike Dillon, Austin and Ty's father, what a piece of work he is.
He's the greatest dude in the world, man. I seen him at Pocono a couple weeks ago, and we were reliving an old story. And I'll say this in best way I can, really quick. So they were getting Richard and Judy Childress are making a large donation to like Wake Forest University or something like that. I mean, millions of dollars, and they were introducing their daughter. And if I may say it, it was her name is Tina Childress Dillon. That's and Mike Dillon's crazier than hell. He says, I told Richard after that thing, he says, it'd be a whole lot easier if I just took on the Childress name and got rid of this Dillon stuff. He says, I can be known as Mike Childress. It's fine with me.
Yeah, and it would be knowing Mike.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a really good guy.
Well, we touched on a lot of things here, and great show. Good, always good to see you. And ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. I'm sure we'll be coming up with another podcast here in the next 5 or 6 days.
Yeah,
And I'm
well,
glad
everybody just remember we just got done celebrating Independence Day. We're doing it throughout the year. We got a big IndyCar race coming up in August in the downtown streets of Washington, D.C. But remember the freedoms and the liberties we have, and anybody that that's in the military, stop them, thank them, tell them you appreciate what they're doing, because if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have the liberties we have.
communism and socialism would be here 100%.
Don't
If
want to
they,
hear that, Gary. Quit talking about that crap.
I know if we hadn't had people that gave their lives for it, is what I'm trying to
Yeah.
say. Anyway, folks, thanks a lot. We'll see you. Thank you, Mike.
See y'all later. Have a great day.
See ya.